sa aral mong nagsisilbing
When Muhammad married Zainab, who was the wife of his adopted son, was it by Allah's order or it was simply a personal decision? It was not a divine mandate but rather a personal decision, as later in time did Allah approve of it. You can read this from Quran if you are knowledgeable. So Muhammad can decide by personal decision and not necessarily by virtue of a mandate. Therefore, Muhammad didn't obey Allah but Allah needed to approve of it, as he approved later the marriage with Zainab. Allah never commanded him to marry Zainab, yet he did so. It was by Muhammad's personal desire. It was his personal decision. So, is that Islam? Islam means submission to Allah, yet Muhammad didn't submit because he didn't obey Allah. Instead, he followed his personal decision, so he was a transgressor of Islam, right? When Muhammad married Zainab, how is that submission to God? They will say, Allah gave Muhammad the right to practice his personal decision, as he said, obey the Prophet. When Allah said, obey the Prophet, it implied Muhammad can give orders by his personal decision. That's the Muslim argument. The thing is, which one to obey? His personal decision or the revelation? Of course, the revelation, as Allah said, it's fully detailed and complete in truth, so it must not exceed beyond the revelation. So where in the revelation did Allah command Muhammad to use his personal decision on religious matters? None. Therefore, Muhammad transgressed his own religion, because he employed his personal decision rather than obeying God. That isn't submission to Allah. That isn't Islam. He married Zainab by his personal decision. Allah never commanded him. So it was purely by personal decision. So that is an act of sexual indecency because he acted in lust without a divine mandate. He acted sexually without submission to Allah. He used his personal decision without Allah approving that he must use personal decision on religious matters. That isn't Islam at all. If Islam is submission to Allah, then is using personal decision to marry Zainab a submission to Allah? No, it is not, because it was by his personal decision. There is an example in Quran when Allah didn't allow Muhammad to use his personal decision. Hear it say, "May Allah pardon you, why did you give them permission? Until it was evident to you who were truthful and you knew the liars." Quran 9:43. Unquote. Muhammad permitted what Allah did not permit, as evident in the ayat. Muhammad's personal decision was wrong, thus Allah rebuked him. Meaning, he must not use his personal decision on religious matters. In relation, when he married Zainab, it was by his personal decision too, thus it cannot be Islam or submission to Allah because he didn't submit. He was never commanded to marry Zainab. He wasn't permitted to use his personal decision in marrying Zainab, thus he didn't submit to Allah. He followed his own personal self, and not Allah. And that is against the meaning of Islam. Now Muslims, ask yourself this. Is Muhammad using his personal decision to marry Zainab submission to God? Is it Islam? You might say, it is Islam because Allah approved of it later. The thing is, that is later. How about before it? Was there an approval? During the marriage, was there an approval? None. Therefore when they married, it was an act that isn't Islam. They married without submission to God, therefore Muhammad opposed the meaning of Islam, that is submission to God. That construe a sexual immorality as it is outside the limits of Islam. Muhammad and Zainab married outside the limits of Islam. How come? Because there was no mandate for them to marry. So it must be sunnah to use personal decision beyond the limits of Islam. They might say, there was no limit then as the revelation isn't complete. So you mean, there was no Islam yet when the revelation wasn't complete? There was, but Islam during those times wasn't perfect yet, thus Allah said, He perfected it. The thing is, Muhammad and Zainab's marriage isn't Islam at all. It isn't submission to God. So was that permissible, then? Thank you.
Salam on the